Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips here. Man, I've got a great show, great guest today. I'm really excited to have Tim Bratz with us. Tim is a good friend of mine. But man, he started, if you remember, like my story where I started, him started very, very similar. He just bought a property, fixed it up, sold it. It worked, and he was like, "Holy crap, this thing works! Let's go all in." And the cool thing is that Tim has grown to over 4,800 units that he owns under management, and has helped a ton of people along the way. Incredibly generous guy with his time, with his skill set, and we're blessed to have him on the show. Tim, welcome.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Excited to be here, Ron. Thanks for the invitation, man. I got a ton of respect for you, and you're definitely somebody that I look up to in a big way in the real estate industry. So it's always great to connect.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Tim's on location today. He's usually a Charleston guy like me, but he has escaped the heat, I guess. Gone to
70 and sunny, no humidity
so,
here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Although today, dude, it's actually kind of nice. So I don't know. It's beautiful here today. So anyway, man, let's talk a little bit about just really briefly, like walk me through how did you get from 1 to 4,800 plus?
I mean, there's a lot of, how do you eat an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time, kind of a thing.
There's a few. There's a few,
but there's definitely a couple of key integral points that I saw that were big. Not in the moment, maybe didn't seem like it. Actually, it was a pain point and a very scary point many different times. But usually, when you face that friction, you face that fear. It's a growth thing, right? And you're punching out of your comfort zone. You get into this next level, and that's usually where the growth happens. So, hey, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and went to school 03 to 07 in college, and everybody's making money in real estate. And so I decide I like money. I want to go and make money, and let me get into real estate. So I had a painting company in college. I interned for a big home builder, and then after college, my brother was living out in New York City. I decided to move out to New York City, and I got a job as a commercial real estate agent, commercial real estate broker. So I brokered leases, and I didn't really do any investment sales. I wasn't like senior enough to handle some of those, but I did a lot of corporate leases, like office lease or little retail lease down a back alley in New York City, and just saw how much money the landlords were making and how much residual income these landlords were making over time, and thought, I'm on the wrong side of the coin. I need to be owning real estate instead of brokering it. So somebody told me good things about Charleston. I moved down to Charleston in 2008 and dove into real estate and tried learning everything and racked up credit card bills, right, with the coaching platforms, and that a lot of us did. And I go to jump into my first deal, and the whole market collapses, and Lehman Brothers are on TV with people walking out of the office with boxes, and every headline says run from real estate. Real estate caused the greatest meltdown since the Great Depression, and blah 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 blah. And so, kind of a weird position to be in, right? Because I had been working for the past 3-4 years. Like the only thing I know in my adult professional career is real estate, and then everybody's saying run from real estate because it's causing all these people to go bankrupt. And I remember looking around, like timing was kind of unique because I didn't get in just before that, where I started buying a bunch of things at inflated prices with no document loans and stated income and all that stuff. So like, I probably would have, if I was born 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier, I probably would have done some stupid, naive, whatever, made some bad decisions on that stuff. But because of I got in right as everything was collapsing, I didn't have enough time to mess up when we were at the top of the market.
Yep.
And so now the market collapses, and dude, these properties were everywhere. and you couldn't walk down the street without stumbling. Like 1 in 10 properties or 2 in 10 properties were bank owned, like, and just coming on the market nonstop. And it just kept on increasing from there. And so I saw all these properties hitting the market for these pennies on the dollar. And the limitation then was, how do you get money, right? And nobody was lending me any private money because everybody said run from real estate.
Everybody was scared.
Yeah, I was talking with a guy yesterday. I was signing documents for an apartment complex that I'm developing actually in South Carolina, and getting a construction loan for it. And the guy's like, "Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable!" The kid at UPS, and he goes, "I wish I was born 10 years earlier." I was like, "Bro, it was very different than today. It's a lot easier to make money today than it was 10 years ago, or 15 years ago when that was. 15 years ago, there were deals everywhere. Nobody was giving you money. Nobody was lending money.
It was so hard to get money.
Oh my gosh, right? It was like, especially to a 23-year-old kid who'd never done a deal before, like nobody's giving me money. So I bought my first house on my credit card. I actually used, one of those balance transfer checks and bought the house with that, fixed it all up, flipped it, was all in for like 20 grand, sold it for 33 grand. And it's on Tillman Street in North Charleston, right off of Dorchester Road.
Oh man.
I did such a good job that the guy I sold it to tore it down and made it a parking lot.
That's so awesome.
So that was that's been pretty indicative of how good of a flipper I am. And so went down the wholesale road, started flipping some houses, but I really like the idea of buying and holding. And so just started doing some transactional stuff when there were short sales all over the place, and all these people handing over properties and the deeds to their properties, and they're like, just save me from foreclosure. And there was a lot of loan modifications. So I tried to help out with some of that stuff. Was never really any successful with it, but I really like the idea of buying and holding, and just by being at the real estate investors associations, kind of in that network and talking to people about it. People are like, everybody's running from real estate. You're still doing it? Like, what's going on? And that opened up some doors to private money. And so I would say that is number one. That opened up, if you can raise private capital, it's like the vaults are open. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, doesn't matter what asset class you're in. If you can raise money, you can do deals. And if you have money, the deals come to you, and he who has the money typically makes the rules. So now it's like there's a lot of posturing that you can do if you can raise capital, and that changed everything.
And Tim, there was like this time, I remember distinctly the shift, right? Because back in the day when money was scarce, money made the rules. And I remember distinctly when there was this flip and the deals became really, really difficult to get. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden it was he who had the deals made the rules.
Right.
And it took months for the money people to realize, oh, we're not in control anymore. And it's because there weren't deals littering the floor all over the place. Like, you couldn't just go get a deal anywhere. Now you had to be really, really strategic. You didn't know what you were doing to be able to get the deals. And the money was plentiful because the government was handing out money all over the place. Well, deals were very scarce because there was so much capital. And I remember that dichotomy. I'll never forget that. It's the craziest thing. All of a sudden, rules flipped on their heads.
And it's still like that. It's like that today. There's a lot more money out there, and the deals are much more difficult to come by. And so if you can go out and find a deal, the money's going to be there. The money's pretty arrogant, though. The money's pretty, it's pretty hard-headed. It's hard to, like, especially big money. But if you can go to somebody and whenever I have conversations with private investors, especially people who have like this scarcity mindset of like, I'm going to try to wait it out. I'm going to try to find the perfect deal. It's like, who are you, Nostradamus, right? Like, you can't predict the future. I can't predict the future. And the people who wait lose value because they just never get the perfect deal. And I think about baseball games, and baseball games are not won by just swinging for the fences and hitting home runs. It's won by base hit after base hit after base hit, compounded over time, that moves the batters around the bases and scores runs. And so, and that's the how I talk to a lot of my investors is like, listen, there's plenty of opportunity out there. And some of the best deals I ever bought ended up being strikeouts, right? I thought they were going to be home runs. They ended up being strikeouts. And some of the other ones that I thought was going to be a base hit turned into a double or turned into a triple and turned into being great, fantastic properties. And so, I try to convey that to my investors of like, let's just get the money in play, and the momentum is more important, and having the activity is more important than actually waiting for the perfect deal.
Yeah, winning the game is the most important piece.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hit a home run and still lose the game.
Agreed. Very much so. Very much so. Because if you have more strikeouts than you do home runs, then you're in a tough spot, man. So
You're in trouble.
yeah, yep. But the money part was a big deal. The money, being able to raise capital, and I didn't have access to big money, right? It's like my brother loaned me $50,000. I was 23, 24, 25 years old, so like none of my buddies had any money, but they'd lend me like 10 grand or 25 grand. I had one guy who loaned me $100,000, and like that was my biggest investor for the first until about 2012. 2012 was $100,000 was my biggest investor loan for the first 3 or 4 years that I was doing real estate, and chased some other shiny objects. Right, went down the path of like network marketing and multi-level marketing, some other stuff that really like aligned with real estate well. TVs and phones and internet, electricity and natural gas and things like that. And I thought, well, I have all this property. Well, I didn't have a lot. I had 9 rentals by the time I was 25. And so that was cool, or plus my primary residence. So 10 houses. And I wasn't rich, but I was financially free because the residual income exceeded what my monthly expenses were on both the business and personal side. And so wasn't much above that, but it was, technically I thought I had everything figured out. So I chased all these shiny objects, went down a rabbit hole of thinking I was going to get rich in another industry that I knew nothing about and never dedicated enough time to become an expert in that industry. And because of that, I ended up going broke. And so I sold off my properties and had $25,000 in credit card debt and $80 in my bank account in 2012. It was August 2012. And I'm like, what am I doing? I had something figured out with the real estate. Let me just go back into doing that. And by going back into that, there were a couple people in that network marketing company who actually reached out. They had other businesses, and they said, hey, man, the reason we got into this so we can make money, put it in real estate. Can we invest with you? So those guys, a couple of brothers, gave me 300 grand to start at the end of 2012. And that's when I bought my first apartment building. So I bought an 80 unit building, moved back to Cleveland, Ohio. I moved back in with my parents, and at the age of 27 in order to try to figure things out again. And in Cleveland, Ohio in 2012, man, you could buy anything. I was buying houses for $6,000 that were rented for $600 a month. Didn't do anything to it, right? And I bought this 8 unit apartment building for $30,000, and I put another 50 into it. It was all in for 10 grand a unit, and it was a 33% cap rate when it was stabilized.
Yeah, I mean, I remember distinctly trying to get people to understand, because I had to turn my capital in my business. I was trying to sell real estate, right? And I was trying to turn my capital. And I remember right around the same time, and I was trying to tell people like, look, this is below replacement cost. You can't build the property for this money. And the cap rates are stupid. Like, and everybody was like, yeah, but real estate's a bad investment. I'm like, no, look, look.
Well, here's the thing. It was very hard to sell though, too, right? Like, because money was nowhere, it was hard to sell. So somebody had to buy it with the intent of holding on to it, unless they had some really creative strategies in order to exit, because people weren't paying premiums. From at least in Cleveland, Ohio, man, that didn't start changing until 2017, 2018.
No, well, the
time frame.
I mean, the bottom of the market wasn't even until 2012, which most people don't remember. But the bottom of the market, it didn't happen for like 5 years. So,
and it took many years to then even recover and see prices start coming back up.
So many reasons for that. I keep talking about the stupid government intervention in our appraisal system, which kept the market low for longer than it should have been. But man, the people who bought back then and held, oh my gosh, dude, they made so much money. The people that I actually convinced to listen to me back then made so much money.
Yep. And it's, again, it's hard, man. When you have when you see the market collapsing and you're in a recession for many, many years or whatever it looks like, and you're a little bit spooked by what's going on, um, it's hard to have that 10-year time horizon. But if you would have told somebody your property's going to quadruple in value, if you just hold on to it for 10 years, you know, I usually have the mindset of my property will double in value in the next 20 to 30 years, right? Like that's kind of usually what I think when I buy something. If I could pay it down, if it doubles in value over the next 30 years by the time it's paid off, I think it's a pretty, you know, uh, realistic approach to things. As long as you're buying in good areas or people and demographics are growing and population's growing, but quadrupled, man. The value's quadrupled in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's
Nice.
it's wild to think about, but it's hard while you're in it, you know, because you're not thinking longer term. And I think that's something I've learned over time, especially got smacked in the face with this past couple of years, is like, don't make decisions based on short-term circumstances. Make decisions on whatever's best for the long term. When I look at a deal today, I ask myself, do I see myself owning this for the next 50 years? Do I want to hand this down to my kids? I don't want my kids going to this area to invest in this property. I'm not buying that property, man. Right? And so I'm asking myself legacy type questions. And you think about all the billionaires on television, dude. Elon Musk, he's not thinking about the profit and loss this week or this month or this year. Like, he doesn't care, right? What he cares about is colonizing Mars in the next 500 years. He's not going to be around, but he's thinking on that type of a time horizon. And there's a reason that he's in the top 3 richest people in the entire world because of that. And I usually almost always make better decisions by what's going to be best in the long run.
Yep. Especially when you're in crisis, right? Nothing good comes from making snap decisions in crisis mode. Somehow you have to pull yourself back out of that and actually make really good, logical, longer term decisions, even and despite especially when you're in some kind of a crisis mode. That's really solid advice. So talk me through what state of the market today from your perspective. I mean, I know you're in the commercial world, mostly in apartments, and I know you've done some commercial buildings and things like that too, but in single family, clearly. What's your take on the market today?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, and listen, I'm guilty of educating a lot of them, right? Like my portfolio started growing. I had, I don't know, 400 doors or something in 2017. And then 2018, I bought another 1,000. 2019, I bought another 2,000. 2020, I bought another 1,000, right? So I was up to 4,800 doors by early 2021. And dude, when the market's appreciating and the rents are appreciating, your ego starts appreciating too, and you start making some stupid decisions. And
That's so good.
I did. I made, like, I thought I was bulletproof. I thought I was good to go. I thought everything would be fine. That I, had enough resources, connections, and all this other stuff. And then obviously COVID hits. I bought I used to burr apartment buildings, right? So I'd buy it, renovate it, rent it out, refinance, and the loan amount was higher than or just below what I could sell it for. So it made sense to just refinance and hang on to these things. And if you refinance in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, the rates were the lowest they've ever been. And so that model worked really, really well for me until COVID hit, when they put an eviction moratorium in place for 15 months. But when you're buying heavy value add properties where you got to remove a bunch of unqualified tenants because they're not paying rent, they're disrespectful to the property, they're disrespectful to the other tenants, makes things difficult, right? And then supply chain gets all messed up. You can't get the materials that you need. Labor force is either non-existent or doubles in wages. And I got stuck with a couple thousand very difficult units. And I'm trying to figure out, what do we do? So in 2021, 2022, I actually sold off about 2,000 doors. And so I'm hovering around 3,000 doors today. And I think I'm going to sell off some more. And we've stabilized some things. There's a lot of variables in the market. Obviously, interest rates started going up and insurance costs started going. Everybody talks about interest rates. dude, forget interest rates. Insurance is here to stay, right? Interest rates will always go up and down. Insurance is much more uh, painful to the NOI. Yeah. And if you're in a coastal area, it's triple or quadruple, right? Like my stuff in Louisiana and Houston, Texas, and stuff it's gone through the roof. And like, I'll give you an example. I have a big building that I have in Houston, Texas, 600 units. When we bought it, insurance was about $300,000 a year, right? And so it was like $500 per unit per year. It has gone up to over $2,000. It's quadrupled. It's 1.1 or some, and some change $1 million. When you're like let's just do the math on this. Okay, I got a calculator here. We're talking $800,000 of added expense divided by a 6% cap rate, reduce the value of that property by $13.3 million in 24 months. Nothing else changed other than insurance costs gone up. It evaporated $13 million of value on that property because of that.
You know, this is something that I think people don't actually. So when you're listening and you hear something like that, you got to ask yourself, what other things in the marketplace are being cannibalized by the inflation that has taken place because of the government just chucking money at people. I mean, they're just literally printing money, throwing it out of airplanes and chucking it at people. That is a really incredibly specific example of just what inflation does. And I mean, we talk about inflation because we go to the grocery store, eggs are double, triple, meat's insane. Food just in general is crazy. Gas prices have gone through the roof. I mean, you just everyday things that people think about. But what I think a lot of times people don't realize, and there's tons of people out there just screaming about rents. Well, what is it that Tim and the other people who own property are supposed to do when value of their property just dropped $13 million? Now they can't sell it, right? Or they're going to lose money. And the second thing is they have to pay.
Yeah. There's $70,000 a month, right?
I mean, so who actually pays? Who actually pays?
So every other business passes it on to the consumer.
Every single business. So you want to understand why everything costs more. That is why everything costs more. You want to know why rents went up? Not because some greedy bastard out there decided that your rent should go up. It's because government manipulation of the markets has caused every single thing to be more expensive. Let's not even start talking about taxes, Tim. Taxes have gone up all over the place. In many markets, the taxes have doubled. So now you have taxes. What are the
energy costs are going up.
What are the most expensive things on a property? Taxes, insurance, staff, and
everything.
Literally
everything. I mean, the big five are taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, and management. Right? Those are the big five expenses. Everything usually gets lumped into one of those five categories. They're all up. Every single one of them is more expensive.
So what is going to happen to rents, guys? They're going to go up. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. And that's why. And I get frustrated that there's this cadre of people out there who make out like everybody who's raising rents is doing it because they're just trying to make a fortune. Here, Tim gives this is such a great example. Tim's company loses $13 million of balance sheet money. Now is forced to hold the property because they can't sell. You can't sell it to a $13 million loss. Okay, so Tim now has to hold this property, and in order to hold the property, has to cash flow. Well, if all of his expenses are going up, who pays that? The tenants pay that. So economics like 101. This is not super complicated stuff, but I think the thing that people don't realize is that asset values are affected. Specifically commercial assets.
Mm-hmm. anything that's valued based on an income approach, right? Of income minus expenses equals NOI, net operating income, and then there's some multiple of that.
Mm-hmm.
If the income is not increasing in direct proportion to the expenses increasing, you're losing value at the end of the day. And so you have to increase income. Like, show me a business owner that has not raised their prices. Like, if you own a business and you didn't raise your prices yet, you need to do that immediately, right? You have to go out and raise your prices because everything is more expensive, except for like flat screen TVs. That's the only thing that's gone down in price.
You know, I think that's a really good thing because people who have service businesses lag. Now they will increase because they're going to be forced to as well, but they lag behind because their service hasn't necessarily increased. Maybe gas if you're going somewhere for your service industry, but literally everything that you consume, and that your business consume has gone up. And I think if that's a solid point, Tim. If you're in a service business, you're like, well, everything's pretty much the same for me. No, you better take about a second look. Everything isn't the same for you either. And you know, there's a reason why prices are going up, I guess.
Yep.
Stick a pin in it, folks. And it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
And people are pretty price agnostic now. It's like people aren't even paying attention to it because it feels like fake money. It feels like monopoly out there. It's just they throw like in 2020, it was the lowest amount of credit card debt in the history since they started credit cards or whatever, like in a long time, whatever it was. The lowest amount, like people had paid down their credit card debt substantially up to like in 2020 when COVID happened. In the past 4 years, it is the highest credit card debt ever, right? People are just putting it on plastic and increasing their personal liability because they can't afford it, but they're still paying for all these different things. Their lifestyle hasn't changed. And so we're going down this road of what does that end up turning into when there's this much lack of financial intelligence out there, you know, or people just can't afford it. So, all right, I want to hit on 2 points and I'm going to talk through these things of what's going to happen in the next couple of years and then come back to controlling what we can control, right? I have poured over multiple podcasts, talked to some of the most successful people in the industry, talked to C-level executives at publicly traded companies in the commercial finance world. I've talked to some of the biggest mortgage brokers, all the real estate brokers. I've talked to lenders, the biggest bridge lender in the entire country. I was on a phone call with them. I have a deal with them that they're working out a loan extension for me on, having some conversations with them. One of the biggest mezzanine lenders in the entire country, had some conversations with them. I've had multiple brokers, all this stuff. So here's what's happening. Obviously, they printed a lot of money. There's a lot of inflation going on. The government's trying to kind of like downplay that. What's more important that not enough people are talking about is the housing supply. And so in the United States, you need to produce about 1 million units per year of housing, whether it's multifamily, townhomes, or single family. You need 1 million units per year in order to keep up with population growth.
Just to break even.
That's it. And that's documented immigration and birth rate. Okay.
Yep.
That's how population grows. So people move into the area and then babies being born. 1 million. There's currently today 3.2 million unit deficit in the United States.
Yeah. If you actually looked at the graph, it looks like a roller coaster. It went off the cliff and then flatlined at the bottom, barely started to pop itself back up. And that's it. It's a huge trough.
And so here's what's happening. There's still units coming online. Like I'm building townhouses and apartments right now that I started around COVID time, and they're just coming online today. And a lot of developers have that product hitting in 2024 and 2025. But because of interest rates rising in 20 started going up in 2022, 2023, still up in 2024, material costs are up, labor costs are up. Builders have been pencils down, not underwriting deals, not banking land, not starting construction and going through that process across the country. Not happening. So there is almost zero product, zero, not 1 million units. I'm talking zero coming online in 2026 2027, and 2028. Nothing. So
Yep.
not only are we already in a deficit, it is going to be stretched. And this has been independently discussed amongst many people from many different walks of life that I've personally spoken to about this. Commercial mortgage brokers, commercial real estate brokers, lenders, big bridge lenders, mezzanine lenders, publicly traded finance companies, C-level executives, CFO, to a big one that is a neighbor and buddy of mine, and other big influential people in the industry I've talked to about this. Across the board, there's a ridiculous housing deficit that's going to occur. And by the way, of the things that are being built, well, Tim, I know this developer who's still building apartments or still building single family homes. Yeah. What price point are they at? Because I can assure you it's not affordable, right?
You can't make any money at affordable right now.
Exactly. That's the thing. Median household income is $75,000 in the United States today. The median household price is over $400,000. It's about $450,000 today. Like you can't physically afford it.
That.
And so, and of the things that are being built, you can't build a house under $300,000 today. It just doesn't. It's not economically feasible. So anything that's being built is luxury, and it's creating this constraint on affordable housing, meaning houses under 300 grand, apartments under, let's call it $200,000 a unit. There's nowhere to go, and there's not enough product there. And by the way, I've only talked about documented immigration and birth rate. Undocumented immigration is something that's not many people are talking about. They think there's
well over 10 million.
10 to 30 million are the estimates. 10 to 30 million undocumented immigrants. And these aren't doctors and lawyers. These are people working labor jobs, low income, so they need affordable housing also. So it's putting additional stress on the housing market of anything affordable right now. So what does that mean? That means that over the course of the next, I think things are going to stay pretty stagnant. It's going to be like stagflation kind of a thing over the next 18 months, probably. And then all of a sudden, man, you're going to see this huge demand. I mean, it's already there, but it's going to be compounded many, many times over in this low affordable housing. I think every house under $300,000 is going to be worth $300,000. And I think every multifamily unit under $100,000 is going to be worth somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000. I think rents are going to probably increase by 50 to maybe 100% in some areas, depending on what's going on in that city and that metro, the MSA that you're in. And what does that mean? That means, what do we control? What control the controllables, right? There's a lot of economic indicators, a lot of economic factors, but what can we control? We can control whether or not we buy assets, right? And we can control how well we manage those assets. And can you put fixed rate debt in place? Because to your point before, Ron, if you could put fixed rate debt in place today, let me give you an example. From 1960 to 1990, the dollar was devalued because of government printing of money by 75%. So it cost $4 in 1990 for goods that cost $1 in 1960. Move it forward another 30 years. From 1990 to 2020, it was devalued by another 50%. So that $4 cost $8 in 2020 for the same basket of goods. And then the government doubled, right? What the money that they had printed already in the past 4 years, almost doubled. It's increased by about 40%. No, I'm sorry. It's increased, by over 50%, 50, 60%. What that means is that prices are going to keep on devaluing the dollar, which means it's going to cost more dollars to buy that same exact asset. But here's where we can manipulate the situation. If you put fixed rate debt in place today and you pay off that loan over the course of the next 30 years, and let's say you bought something in 1960 and you paid it off on a 30-year mortgage in 1990, as the dollar was devalued, you locked in the value of a dollar in 1960, but you're paying with dollars from 1985 that are only 25 cents. Does that make sense? Are you following me on this? You're using 25 cents to pay down $1 of mortgage value on your property. So
you basically shorted the dollar.
exactly, you shorted the dollar. That's exactly what you did.
You fixed rate shorted the dollar and locked it in. And the other cool thing, Tim, is that I don't think interest rates are coming down for the foreseeable future.
No way.
But let's just say they do. The cool thing about fixed debt is that you can just refinance at a lower rate and lock it in for another 30 years. And the bank is stuck with whatever rate it is. So if rates go up, you win. If rates go down, you win. And in every single situation, like Tim said, you are going to be paying with dollars that are worth less and less and less and less. And the bank is receiving or getting the payments with dollars that are worth less and less and less and less. And man, it's a really, really good equation. As a matter of fact, back in 2012, I think Warren Buffett said that that's what you should do. You should load up on single family homes, and you should put fixed rate debt on them and short the dollar. He said that in 2012, and then right after that, he proceeded to do that by buying Berkshire Hathaway and getting into residential real estate. And that problem, Tim set up the problem really, really well. We've talked about on the program so many times that there's this shortage of houses, but I think it was really, really just it was laid out in a really clear way. Tim, I appreciate that buying today. Everybody thinks the interest rates are so ridiculously high. They're not. They're not even normal yet. They're still really low.
Yeah. Dude, if somebody gave you unlimited money at 6 or 7%, how much would you take? Like, I would take all of it. I would buy up the earth, right? I would buy up the entire earth and buy everything for 6 or 7% money. To
Especially
me,
when
that's
there's
like
a shortage.
It's free money. Yeah.
Especially when there's a shortage of real estate. Like there's and there's almost no way for it to get cheaper to build houses because of what the government has set in motion here with the inflation.
I think it's going to be so bad, Ron.
Assets during inflation, the values go up. Period.
I think it's going to be so bad that there's going to have to be other government I think there's going to be either, like, I hope they don't, but rent restrictions of some sort.
Well, right? They're talking about that right now already.
Yeah, it's like so unconstitutional that but I mean, it exists in New York City, right? It exists in other cities. I'm hoping that does not happen, and I think that's going to be done on a per municipality basis. I don't think it could be done. I don't know. Maybe it can be done on a federal level, but
anything can be done if you get the wrong, I guess, the right or the wrong people. And I mean, look what they did in COVID, dude. I'll just remind everybody that both sides. So I love the fact that everybody forgets that that Trump is the one that eviscerated contract law and made it so that people didn't have to pay their landlords. I mean, just completely eviscerated centuries of contract law.
Yeah, it's insane.
I mean, with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah, and he's the one who started the printing of money too.
Yeah. I mean, everybody now likes to talk about the last 4 years. Yeah, but it didn't start then. It started before then. Both sides of the coin here have completely eviscerated the Constitution.
Yeah, Biden that administration just compounded it.
Biden just said, "Hold my beer." Watch this. You think Trump was bad? Watch this. So God only knows what's going to happen coming up. But I love this. Control the controllables, right? Just control what you can control. And the thing that I think people sometimes forget is that money is made in every single market condition. It doesn't make any difference. You just have to figure out where the money is in the current cycle that you're in. That's it. And then just just need to get on base. Just need to get on base and then keep getting on base and keep getting on base. You win the game, period.
That's it, man. That's it. And I think just having that long-term vision, right? If you own assets, right? Fixed hard assets like real estate is the only way to combat inflation. You just need to be owning assets. You have to own property and don't have variable rate debt. Just put fixed rate debt on it and then hold it as long as possible. Time will heal all wounds on that side. And so, the other thing that I think is probably likely going to happen, you've seen it in some big cities in California, and I think in New York they might have it too, but there's going to be a mortgage product that ends up being 40 or 50 years.
Yeah,
And they're just going to lock people. Like, it's like what they did with car loans, right? There was 3-year car loans. Now there's 7-year car loans. The payment's the same. They just, have somebody in a headlock for twice the amount of time.
I guarantee it. There's going to be a lot of loan products that I think to fix this. And I think some regulations are probably going to have to loosen up to make some of that stuff happen. Really quickly, man, I just want to touch on something like the last 60 seconds here, because I don't want to keep you too long, Tim. I appreciate your time. How has giving blessed your life, man? We talked a lot about making money, but I know this is a big thing for you, and so just curious, in a succinct way, how has giving, and I should preface this: Tim gives in a very big way, and he wouldn't say that, but I can. So the reason I'm asking that question is because I'm just curious. You make a lot of money, you give a lot of money. How does giving bless your life?
No, I appreciate that. And I think, I was on an airplane once and I was sitting next to a guy, and he's like, he's got houses all over the place and he's really wealthy. And he's like, well, I was like, I want to be rich. I was 22 or 23 years old. And he's like, why do you want to be rich? I was like, I don't know. I want to buy this. I want to buy a house. I want to have this car. And blah, blah. He goes, no, that's not the secret, right? He goes, here's the secret. You make as much money as you can, and then you give it all away. And I was like, guy's out of his mind, right? He's a quack job. He's European. They think differently over there,
They think they're right.
Yeah. And so over time, right, like, money's very important when you don't have any, right? And when I was super, super broke, until you start making 50, maybe 75 or $100,000 a year, and like your basic needs are met, there's no difference in your happiness level whether you make $50,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $5 million a year. Your happiness doesn't change once your basic food's on the table, family's safe, roof over your head, and clothes on your back. Once those basic needs are met, there's documentaries on this. It's scientifically proven. It's study after study on it. So that made a big difference. I do think gives you more options. There's a lot more fun stuff that you can do. But like after I made $500,000 a year, my lifestyle positively did not change in any way beyond 500,000. After I started making over $500,000 a year, I could afford any car. I could live in any house. I could go on any vacation. I could eat whatever I want. And I'm like, there's a lack of fulfillment for me in just doing more just to do more. It felt almost greedy. I'm a blue collar kid from a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. I don't come from a lot, so I don't need a lot. And I hate waste, and I hate inefficiencies and stuff like that. So, dude, there's people. You and I are white males, right? Born to great families, like well educated. Like, think about the lottery of life, and think about taking your lottery ball and of who you are, the demographic that you are, your race, your ethnicity, your education level, the zip code you were born in, the parents you were born to, the year that you were born in, all these different things that make you who you are, and taking that one lottery ball and putting into the hopper with 8 billion other lottery balls of somebody who was born in Africa to some bush tribe that mutilates their genitals, right, when they're a kid, or eats mud pies in South America and lives in a corrugated metal house that on a dirt floor, right? Or again, 25%, I posted this last night, 25% of the population doesn't have access to flowing clean water of the world today in 2024, right? And one that will really blow your mind, 92% of people in the world don't have air conditioning. 92%, right? Only 8% of the global population has air conditioning. We have the ability to say, you know what? It's a little chilly in here. Let me go to the wall, press a button, and take the temperature and make it exactly where I want. Like, that is a godlike ability, right? To be able to control climate. And so I think about these things, man. And to me, right, I am wildly blessed. And I think when you have an ability to make an impact, you have the ability to make a difference, you have the responsibility to do it too. And for me, like, I don't need any more. Like, I'm not going to take it with me when I die. Like, give it all away, give as much of it away as possible. And I'm a big believer that nobody's ever gone broke from giving, and nobody's ever gone poor from giving. And so the more you give in self-interest, the more you're going to get too, right? And
money likes a good steward, man.
Agreed.
That's the thing, right? Money likes a good steward. It's attracted to good stewards, and good stewards are generous people.
Agreed.
Period.
I agree.
And that's what that guy on the plane was trying to tell you so many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate that
That's a great point.
it takes too many years for people to learn that. It would be nice if we could all learn it when we're 22 on a plane next to somebody who tells us, and we just go, "Oh yeah, that makes total sense."
Well, how do we do that, right? I'm sure you take your grandson out and you go and give an extra, like give him the $1 to go put it in the tip jar of the live musician who's playing in the corner of the restaurant, or take him to go and pick out some toys to give to less fortunate kids at the holiday time.
And I think that there's a lot of people. I think I was one of them who wait until they have to be able to give.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to have money to be able to give. You can give your time. You can give your resources. You can give your skill set. You can give in a number of different ways if you aren't, richly blessed. And I loved your example in your post too of the guy who, clearly homeless and still gave at the church offering plate. Was it in the Bible, the widow's mite, right? So everybody can give whatever you can give. It comes back so many times. I appreciate that you sharing that message and sharing how you live. Man, sharing everything that you shared. What an incredible podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to have you back, Tim, because I want to talk to you about your Legacy Academy, and I want you to talk about what do you call it? Little Legacy? What is it called?
Yep. Little Legacy.
Little Legacy. Love it. We don't have time, but I'm going to have you back. I want to talk about both of those things. Tim, thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you or follow you or whatever, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, just connect with me on social media. I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. So at Tim Bratz or Legacy Wealth on YouTube. So man, I appreciate you. I always have a great conversation with you, Ron. And again, man, like there's a handful of people, meaning like less than 5 people I really, really look up to and really admire and go to have, tough conversations and hold their opinion in very, very high regard. And you are one of those 5. So I appreciate you immensely, man. Have a ton of respect for you. And thank you for having me on.
Okay, everybody. Till next week, get out there and make something happen.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.